Hey everybody, and welcome to another ActionFeatures.net Toy Talk review. Continuing our series of Diamond Select Ghostbusters reviews, today we're taking a look at the Series 1 Louis Tully figure. This is our first non-Ghostbuster review from the line, and also I think our first Series 1 review. I think we did Peter and Egon first, and then the Marshmallow Ray, and now this one. So yeah, this is our first Series 1 review. Alright, Louis comes in the same packaging that we've seen on other figures in the line. It's the same kind of packaging that Diamond Select uses across all their lines, which is pretty cool in my opinion. Marvel Select has this kind of packaging, Universal Monsters, all that stuff. You get a very large bubble area, which is great because you can fit in a lot of stuff. So if a figure is a larger figure, they can put a lot inside this bubble, or if they come with a diorama piece, as these do, they can fit inside this bubble. And it's nice that it's been consistent since Marvel Select started, that they've used this large bubble. Sometimes you got a figure that's got a lot of space in there, but other times it's the perfect amount of space. They have this cardboard area along the side here, which on a lot of figures has art, but on the Ghostbusters it has a picture of Louis possessed by Vinz Clortho. We've got the Ghostbusters logo. We've got another shot of Louis down here, along with the name Louis Tully. The figure inside the bubble, obviously. The whole motif is green. And then on the back of the package, we've got a shot of the Louis Tully figure, the Ghostbusters logo, the other Series 1 figures, Ray Stantz and Winston Zeddemore, a little blurb that says collect all 12 figures to build the rooftop scene. We now know it's 15 figures. When the Series 1 figures were happening, they still thought it was going to be 12, and they bumped it up to 15. Alright, I'm going to read the little bio thing on the back here for you really quick. An accountant by trade, Louis Tully was happily living in an apartment west of Central Park in New York City when he became the pawn in an attempted incursion into our dimension by an ancient Sumerian god named Gozer. Drawn to the building by architecture of cult leader Ivo Shandor, Gozer's herald Vinz Clortho, the Keymaster, took the form of a terror dog and possessed Louis. Vinz, as Louis, was then driven to seek out Zul the Gatekeeper, another herald of Gozer, who had possessed Louis' neighbor, Dana. Vinz Louis was arrested and brought to Ghostbusters headquarters, where he was examined by Dr. Egon Spengler before escaping. He then found Zul, and their union summoned Gozer to this plane of existence. This 7-inch scale action figure is based on the 1984 film Ghostbusters, and features multiple points of articulation, as well as accessories and diorama parts. It was sculpted by Gentle Giant Studios. And as that says in there, this one comes with the diorama parts. This was also available at Toys R Us on a smaller card back, without the diorama parts, and just the action figure itself with a base, I believe, like a circle base. I picked up all of the specialty shop versions with the diorama pieces, so I don't have the Toys R Us carded versions to show you, but just imagine this with just the figure and that card back, similar to the Marshmallow Ray review. Alright, let's take a look at the Louis figure and get on with the review. Okay, so let's take a look at Louis's articulation and his sculpt before we give our thoughts on him over at the couch portion of the review. First of all, the sculpt is meant to be the Vinz Clortho version of Louis. So instead of being the prim and proper, kind of tucked-in, nerdy Louis, he's the disheveled Louis, where he's got the shirt untucked and one button, left button, the hair's all kind of crazy. He even has a bit of a red highlight in the paint in his eyes, so that when he's talking to the guy that's with the horse and his eyes glow red, you're getting that kind of Louis. So that's the Louis sculpt we're looking at here, and not so much a cleaned-up accountant Louis. That being said, the sculpt I think is really nice. I think the sculpting in the shirt is especially great, the way it looks like it's got folds and movement to it almost. I really like the shirt sculpt, and it's sort of a rubbery piece, so it doesn't interfere with that mid-torso joint. It's not just a solid chest. I'm going to back this up just a little bit as we talk about the articulation. So it doesn't really interfere with that chest joint so much, having that rubbery sculpt. They also did, I think, a nice job in that the lines where the joints are, you almost can't see them when you back up. They're so cleanly cut into the sculpt, especially on the double knee joint. And the way the bicep joint is in there, it's visible, but I do like that the joint is kind of coming up over the shirt, so it's not just an even cut. So if you turn the arm, you get this, sometimes when they have that kind of joint, it's just cut into the arm, and you get that weird kind of effect where the muscle is split. So as far as articulation goes, here's what he's got. He's got ankles that's, I believe, yeah, they swivel where they plug into the leg, and you can actually see a little bit of skin tone underneath there. So they plug into the leg, and they swivel there, but then there's also a plug into the foot, and so you get that rocker movement. It's a little restricted by the pant leg, but he still has it, so you can get a lot of different poses out of him. And then it also hinges up and down. So you got one, two, almost, I think 3 joints right here in the ankle. And that's pretty decent, right? All in one little spot right there. Like I said, he's got a double knee joint at the top and the bottom. He's got a swivel at the top of his hip. He's got the same kind of hip joints that we saw on the Ghostbusters, where they swivel up and down and they also pivot out. And again, since he's got this shirt piece, it's kind of hiding that joint, which I think is really nice. Sometimes that joint can be kind of ugly in the way it's constructed, especially on superhero figures where there's no uniform to kind of cover it up, and it's all skin tight. I think that joint can look pretty funky. But thankfully the Ghostbusters have their belts, and he has this shirt, which do a great job of hiding that joint. Like I said, he's got that mid-torso joint underneath there, but he's also got a waist joint, so he's got double joint right there. And on the shoulders, he's got swivel up and down, hinges out, the mid-bicep joint that swivels. Then he's got a standard elbow joint. And then the wrists have a swivel where they plug into the arm, and then a hinge where they hinge in and out. And then his head is just mounted on a ball joint. As far as paint detailing goes, I think I have a nice, clean, sharp paint job. You can even see the buttons have been painted white on the shirt. I think the only drawback, and we'll get into this more when we look at the Mattel version with him, is that the shirt is not very detailed. He should have some pinstriping on the shirt that is sort of a shinier look to it, and that's missing from the figure, and I think it's a big, glaring omission, especially when Mattel did it on their Louis Tully figure. So that is missing. The glasses are a separate piece. They're not sculpted, they're not part of the sculpt. And I think they're nice. I think they're nicer than the Egon glasses. I think they did a better job of capturing the design of the frames on him than they did on Egon. I think that I'm glad they didn't put lenses in there. I think that would have looked really funky. And I'm glad they're a separate piece. As far as the likeness goes, in pictures I thought that this one wasn't that great. But in having it in person, and when you kind of look at it at different angles, I see a lot of Moranis in there. Much more so than I did on the Mattel version. And so we keep on talking about Mattel, I'm just going to put it in here. This is, in my opinion, one of the worst figures in the entire Mattel line, is the Louis Tully. Other than the accessories, I think this figure is really, really bad. I think the head sculpt is bad. The articulation on the legs is some of the weirdest I've ever seen on an action figure. The only thing that I believe this one has over this version is that striping on the shirt, which you can see in the video here. Definitely shows up, and there's a big difference between the two of them. But other than that, this one has it all over this one. Since we had the Mattel version in there, we might as well throw the Kenner version in here too real quick so you can see a quick comparison in Louis sculpts. There'll be pictures online. There's really not much to say in this comparison since they're basically from two different things and they're only the same in name only. Okay, so I would show you his accessories now, but he doesn't come with any standard accessories. And that is a weak point on the figure. I like the figure itself. I think it's really sharp. I think it's the best Louis we've had so far. But the lack of accessories is kind of rough, especially when the Ghostbusters came with so much. And the Mattel version of Louis came loaded with stuff. He had a slice of pizza, and I got my Mattel accessories right here. He had that extra colander head, and the thing of popcorn, and a Pterodog head to put over him, and a slice of pizza. So he had a lot of stuff coming with him, the Mattel version did. And even though it's the weaker figure, it is much more loaded down than Louis is accessory-wise. Now, that would be completely a fallacy if these were the same price, and if we weren't talking about the specialty shop version. But this version at Toys R Us with the stand is only $14, and the Mattel version was $20 plus shipping, if I remember right. So you paid more for that figure, and it was a worse figure, even though you got more stuff with it. I think that the drawback of this is really when you compare him to the Ghostbusters, and they're come so loaded down, you expect more with him. But if this were the only figure, which would be odd to say, and it was $14 with that stand, it would still be a really nice value, because it is a good figure compared to the old Mattel version. Speaking of the Ghostbusters, I wanted to show you scale-wise how he stacks up to a Ghostbuster, and I just have my rookie custom handy here. I'll throw him in there with him, if I can get him to stay standing, sorry. There we go. So you can see he's a bit shorter than the Ghostbusters, which makes sense. All of the select lines are to a 7-inch scale, which is nice that all the lines are in scale with each other. So Vince, whatever you want to call him, is a bit shorter. He's not quite 7 inches because he's a shorter character in the films. Okay, so this was the specialty shop version, so even though there were no accessories, he does come with a rather large portion of the diorama. Let's back this up here some so you can get a good idea of how big this piece is. And even if you didn't build the rest of the diorama and you just wanted a piece of the rooftop to display some figures on, I would recommend getting the Lewis at the specialty shops. Because even though you're not going to get accessories, you are going to get a cool piece of the diorama, and it is nice. It would be cool all on its own. In fact, the only way you can really tell it's meant to go to other pieces if you look at it from this angle, where you've got that little divot there that's meant for something and these connector clips. But if you just had this piece on your shelf and you wanted to put one of your Ghostbusters on there, it would look pretty cool all on its own. You know, you wouldn't have to build the rest of the diorama if you just wanted to get just Vin's and get a little bit more of a value with him as far as stuff that is included in the package. This version will set you back $22 to $25 depending on the store, so you're paying a little bit more, but I don't really think that there's many Toys R Us's that have the Series 1 figures anymore. They might be on their website still, but I haven't seen the Lewis in stores for a while now. Even at $14 with no accessories, he's still sold pretty well. Alright, so I think that about covers everything we want to talk about here. So let's gather him up and we'll take him over to the couch and finish the review. Hey everybody, welcome to the couch portion of the review for Diamond Select's Lewis Tully. Yeah, we're a little bit behind on finishing off these. We said we were going to do these, like, get them done real fast, but yeah, we got sidetracked. Halloween, we had to build a lot of costumes. Speaking of which, Blaze was actually going to wear his Lewis costume for this review, and I kind of forgot about it. So, yeah, when we do Mattel Lewis, maybe you'll do it then. You know, it's weird because I can only see your eyes. Like, it's like you're peeking out above Keaton. You're like Wilson from Home Improvement.
I haven't seen that.
You don't know what that is. Alright, so we've already shown all the articulation and the packaging and stuff. I'm drinking an Ecto Cooler. They're drinking Ecto Coolers. Okay. Already shown the articulation, the packaging, all that stuff. Now we're just going to give our thoughts on the figure, and especially in comparison to the previous Rick Moranis Lewis Tully figure. Okay, first of all, I really like the sculpt. What do you guys think?
I like the sculpt.
Yeah?
But I like the sculpt.
I'm a little bummed it didn't come with the second head.
Well, we'll talk about that. Let's not talk about the extra stuff. I'm just meaning the sculpt we have here. The sculpt we have here, I think, is really nice. It's the sort of frazzled Lewis, right, when he goes to meet that, when he sees the horse, and then the guy asks him if he wants to ride, and he's got the kind of the reddish look in his eyes. And for that, they've captured it really, really well.
Yeah.
I think that the only downside of the figure itself, judging just the figure, is that it doesn't have the stripes in the shirt. It should have stripes, like the Mattel one does have the stripes in the shirt. He's got these sort of different colored stripes to his shirt. They're just like an off blue or like a shimmery blue compared to the rest of the blue, and this does not have those. It would just been a paint app that they could have done, just like Mattel did, and it is lacking on this figure. And when a figure doesn't come with a lot of accessories to begin with, something like that feels like it should have been there.
Right.
It's really, to me, though, the only downside of the figure itself. I think the articulation works really well, the sculpt works really well, the scale of him compared to like a Ghostbuster works really well, where he's a little bit shorter. Overall, I think the figure itself is solid other than that. But like you were saying, he really should have come with more stuff.
Yeah.
Like his head.
Yeah, like a second head.
It's where he doesn't have like red eyes.
Yeah, maybe, or you know, with the colander thing on his head, with the helmet thing with all the wires. Mattel did that with their version where it had the interchangeable heads and had that helmet thing going on. And that would have been a nice thing to include with him, because as it stands right now, he has no accessories. No extra hands, no interchangeable head, nothing. And that is, judging from what the rest of the line, the precedent and the standards they set with the other figures, that is pretty lacking.
It's him and Dana, they both, right?
Dana at least came with extra hands, though. She at least has an extra set of hands.
Oh, okay.
That is, she is lacking a little bit too, and we'll get to that when we get to her. But she's second series. It's like the first series one had a figure with little articulation in Lewis, or little accessories in Lewis, and the second one has a little one with Dana where it has very little accessories. And there is something to be said where they have to kind of balance out each wave. Like, the Ghostbusters are so loaded down with stuff that maybe they have to pull back on the other figures a little bit.
Like, Walter Peck isn't going to have that much stuff.
He's not.
If anything.
Exactly. He's probably going to come with a diorama piece. And the one I did buy, like all the other ones, is the diorama piece. And that meant he got to include like a big piece. So you got this piece here and all this here. So it is a pretty large, substantial piece, which kind of makes up for the fact that he has a little less stuff in there. And, I mean, that's a cool piece all on its own. So you don't have to...
Cool piece.
Yeah, if you were to buy the rest of the figures from Toys R Us without the pieces, you could get the Lewis from a comic shop and get this piece, not build the whole diorama, and feel like you've got more of a value. Yeah. Because, I mean, at 22 to 25 is what these are at comic shops. That's a good value when you take those two things together. It's only when he's at Toys R Us, when he's sitting with the other Ghostbusters, which at this point he's gone, but when he was there...
Ghostbusters are gone.
Yeah, everything's gone. When he was there with those, and you had the other accessories and stuff to compare with, that was when he seemed like he wasn't as good of a value.
Right. But it's still only like, what, $15?
Yeah, he's like $14-15.
Which isn't bad at all.
Yeah, for a figure with no accessories, it's still not bad. Yeah, if you judge him by himself, it's great.
Yeah.
If you judge him next to the Ghostbusters and you're getting those for 14 or 15, you're like, why didn't he come with more stuff? And especially when the Mattel version came with all that stuff.
Yeah.
But the Mattel version was $20 plus shipping, so you're talking about a $30 figure.
Yeah.
No big diorama piece. Yes, it came with more stuff, but this figure is really weak compared to this figure.
I liked it.
It's okay. No, in comparison, bud. That's all I'm saying. Is in comparison to the two, this one's a bit of a weaker figure. As far as the Mattel sculpts went. And I want to go back and I want to say something too. From the previous Diamond Select reviews, maybe seem like I'm giving Mattel a hard time. I do really like the Mattel figures. They are really fun figures. They're made as more toys than collector's items, I think. Which is kind of weird they were sold as an adult collector line, because I think they work great as a toy line. I think that Lewis is a bit on the oddball side amongst that line, in that his articulation's a little different. They did some weird things with his hips. He's probably my least favorite of that line, but it was still really fun to get the Rick Moranis Lewis. But we'll talk about that when we get to him. I want to say one other thing real quick, too. I think his glasses are handled better than Egon's were.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. The size and the style of them, I think, looks a lot closer to what they are in the film than Egon's turned out.
Yeah.
And I like Janine's, too. We've got Janine now. I think hers work really well. They're a little bit too light of a pink, but the size of them is a lot better than Egon's. I think Egon is the weakest of the Diamond Select glasses so far.
You know,
You know what?
Janine.
Yeah.
Her glasses, she has, huge glasses.
She did have big glasses in the movie. She does have big glasses. But they're more sort of a clear, plasticky frame, and these are more just, pink. And I know that's tough to do with that scale, but we're talking about Janine, and we don't need to talk about Janine right now.
Yeah.
We can talk about Janine when we get to Janine. Lewis, it's a figure you don't absolutely need unless you're building the diorama, then you do need it. If you're only collecting, the Toys R Us versions, or you're not wanting to build the diorama, you could skip Lewis, but it is a cool figure. And Rick Moranis is hilarious in Ghostbusters.
The second funniest part in that movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's hilarious in
After Bill
Ghostbusters.
Murray.
Yes, definitely.
I love John Candy. I think John Candy's great in films, but it would not have worked as well. John Candy was the original guy that was going to play Lewis.
Yeah, they included him in the IDW comic.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Those comics are so good. But yeah, I don't think it would have worked as well with John Candy as it did with Rick Moranis. Rick Moranis is so funny in Ghostbusters.
He is.
Alright, so if you want to check out a gallery of this, you can hit the info section below and it'll take you to a link with a gallery of all the pictures of Lewis. If you're watching this on YouTube, that is, you'll see the info section below and you'll be able to take a look at the gallery. And I think that about wraps it up on this one, right?
Yeah.
Alright, so we're going to sign off on this one and we'll see you guys next time.